You're watching Access Community Television, shamelessly promoting our friends and community.
Welcome to Access TV, where we shamelessly promote our friends and community. On this episode of Access TV, we are going to be giving you plenty of stories from our neighborhood. We're going to start off with affordable housing in Heather Place, which is in the VGH neighborhood of Vancouver. It's at Threat. We'll hear from Caron Gilchrist, a resident there, who will explain why. And then we're going to hear from the project that has been going on this year called Resonating Reconciliation. As you well know, 2014 is the year of reconciliation, and there have been a series of over 30 podcasts, different stories of survivors of residential school, and we're going to hear about how that is helping all of us to heal. We'll check in with Charlotte LeBlanc of WMovers, a local business that has been helping women for over 2 years. We're also going to hear from Wanda Mulholland and Karen O'Shaughnessy. They're tackling the problem of transit, and should it be affordable or free for the homeless? And then we'll check in with Judy Kenzie, a local entrepreneur and gardener, who's going to bring some of her imaginative vessels for gardening and give us some of her vertical gardening ideas. We'll hear from Deborah Littman, who is a local organizer and leader of the Metro Vancouver Alliance. Well, you may know how to be a good friend or a good neighbor, but they're trying to teach us how to be a good citizen. We're also going to check in with Larry Wong. He's got a documentary that he's going to tell us about, and that will lead us into Asian Heritage Month that's coming up just around the corner, and we'll hear about Operation Oblivion. We have a film to show you from some of the volunteers here at Shaw Cable. It's called Old School Perseverance. It's going to touch on the school system, some of the barriers, and how some kids navigate them and find ways to stay in school. All of that here on Access Television, where we shamelessly promote our friends and community. Stay tuned. We're talking to people about food security. And do you think food security is an important issue?
Yes, very important.
I would like to know that my food sources are safe and monitored at the very least.
Yeah, because you want to know what you're eating.
It's a very important issue. It should be the number one issue on everybody's head. Where are you going to eat next? Okay. And how do you get the food that you're going to eat?
My name is Sid Tan, and with us today in the studio is Caron Gilchrist, a single mother who lives with her 8-year-old daughter Nadia at Heather Place. She's also has a master's degree in social work and works for the Fraser Health Authority. Welcome to the show, Caron.
Thank you for having me, Sid.
It's so great to have you here. And I just wanted to talk about Heather Place, which I understand is up for redevelopment at this particular time. Can you tell us a little about Heather Place?
So Heather Place is the home of 86 families, over 150 children, mostly many of them new Canadians or single mothers.
And I understand that the redevelopment going on there, you have some concerns about them. And in an article that you wrote in the Mainlander with Nathan Crompton, you spelled out those 4 concerns. I'm just wondering if you can just give us a brief overview of what those 4 concerns are.
So our 4 major concerns are income testing, right to return, gentrification, and as well the shaky finances and broken promises that have been historic in Vancouver for social housing.
Okay, let's start with the gentrification part. What are your concerns around gentrification at Heather Place?
Well, mixed housing has been a success in many different areas, and so we feel at this time point, with the child poverty rate 9 years running being the highest in Canada, and affordable housing being the largest expense for families, that we are really concerned and feel that it's irresponsible of Metro Vancouver Housing Corporation and the City of Vancouver to rezone and redevelop this area, displacing the 86 families and 150 children.
Okay. The other one too, I think that you're talking about is the income testing loopholes. You are a single mother. You're working full time, and I understand that you may have difficulty returning, even though you are paying market rent now.
Yes, and so what happens there is that I have full student loans and I have childcare costs. Those costs are not considered when applying for a subsidy. Currently, the rent is is $1,100 for a 2-bedroom. That's within my manageable level with those costs considering. But if it goes up to $1,800 minimally, as Metro Vancouver Housing Corporation has dictated, it is not affordable for me. And so when you have 46% of single mothers living below the poverty line, and I live above the poverty line, where does that leave us? Right? We're actually discouraging single mothers from gaining education and trying to make lives better for themselves and their children.
And on top of this, there's what you call the broken promises and shaky finances part. What is that? I'm not quite sure what that is.
So Metro Vancouver Housing Corporation has said, okay, give us your income information, and we'll go back to our bankers and get the finances for this development. However, we can't really fully promise that you'll be subsidized and can come back. Basically, we're a nonprofit society. We own 51 buildings, and we have no grounding for that. And this has happened historically with Little Mountain Housing, where 270 families 5 years ago were displaced off of there. We actually have a couple of Little Mountain families living at Heather Place, and this has been their sanctuary, and they're going to lose that now. As well as we look at what happened at Olympic Village. That was supposed to be 2/3 social housing. Those people, that hasn't happened, and the shallow subsidies that have been provided, people can't afford to stay because there's extraneous fees such as that are on over and above a subsidy. So no one even that has received the subsidies is actually staying anymore.
We're running pretty much out of time now. You're doing a lot of organizing. You're doing a lot of things. I had the pleasure of going to your open house at Heather Place yesterday, and it was fun. You had the local vocals, lots of music, and there are many things going on. I'm just wondering if people want to get involved in this campaign or talk about affordable housing, especially what's going on at Heather Place, how can they contact you or how can they get involved?
Well, please definitely look at the Social Housing Alliance webpage. We've worked closely with them, and I volunteer with them, as well as please email me at saveheatherplace@gmail.com.
Right. Thanks for being with us. Is there anything final you'd like to say before we go?
I think that we have an opportunity here to really make a difference, and we really want the community to cry out about this. There is a public hearing pending. Perhaps Vision Vancouver is not allowing this to go through prior to the election because they don't want to be seen as dislocating 150 children out of their homes, but this is what they're doing. So we need to send a very strong message to them that this is not going to be tolerated.
Thanks for being with us today, Caron.
Thank you very much, Sid.
We've been with Caron Gilchrist, who's trying to save the Heather Place for affordable housing. My name is Sid Tan for Access Community Television, shamelessly promoting our friends and community. Until we meet again, straight shooting and tight edits.
Welcome back to Access TV. Next up, we're going to hear from Doug West, one of the board members, flanked by other board members of the Red Jam Slam.
Hi, I'm Gunargie O'Sullivan, and you're watching Access TV, where we shamelessly promote our families and our communities. Today we have the Red Jam Slam Society here with us, and I'd like to introduce you to Doug West. Hello, Doug. How are you?
Good. How you
Good.
doing?
And you're the president of the Red Jam Slam Society.
I am.
Wonderful. Can you tell us more about the society and what the role of the society is?
Well, first I'll introduce our
Okay.
board.
All right.
We have with us Dave Rufus, Rhonda Watts, Elwyn Z, and a founding board member, Stephen Litton.
Yes.
I don't know, we mentioned yourself as well as the founding, the founder of the Red Jam
Yeah,
Slam.
I founded the Red Jam Slam way back in 1990 with a fellow by the name of Wayne LaValle, who's a Métis and a musician. And we had the opportunity to do an event at the Lacana Coffee House on Commercial Drive. That was the first Red Jam Slam we ever held. And then we just continued to hold Red Jam Slams throughout the Lower Mainland at places like the Prohibition and the Nelson Place. Remember the old Indian bar?
Yes.
On corner of Nelson and Granville Street. And but most recently, we formed a society in 2010, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we've been officially a provincial nonprofit since 2010, and our mandate is to provide exposure and communications access to emerging and established artists, performers, and Aboriginal communities to show their works, either on the internet or through our association with the National Community Radio Association.
And since we've built this partnership with the National Community Radio Association, the Red Jam Slam Society has been able to hold 5 major events across the country, starting with Vancouver, you know, on the February 14th. We honored the missing and murdered women, held a great event with Patsy Burns, Your Wagon, the Res Warriors, and you know, some comedians were there and some artists like Chris Boys, and the list just went on. And then we went to Edmonton, Ottawa, and then the latest and the final Red Jam Slam for this particular project, Resonating Reconciliation, is going to be in Nunavut, where Lucy Idelud is going to be coordinating it. And so it's been like a slam.
That's right. We're looking forward to the Nunavut Slam event, which is what we call it.
Yeah.
And so it's been a huge success over the last year.
It has.
And it's ending the end of this year, March, the fiscal year this year.
Well, it will never end, but this project is going to be finished in March. So
the success of this project is actually going to lead us into a potential new project called the Art of Language Revitalization.
Excellent.
And we're hoping to hear about that soon.
Yeah. One of the most important things that the Red Jam Slam is doing right now is we've been commissioned to make 40 radio documentaries across the country. And so far we have 75 radio documentaries. We've exceeded our goal here. Like, it's crazy, the stuff that has gone on this year between the National Community Radio Association and the Red Jam Slam Society. It's really quite amazing. So I congratulate the board for sticking it out and backing this project up and representing the people. It's awesome.
Yeah, the NCRA has over 90 community radio stations associated with them.
Yeah.
And so all of the radio docs that we've done, I think were aired across Canada, and they're also available on their associated websites.
Right, and that is www.ncra resonating. And also we have a really great website that you built. Can you tell the people more about that?
Our website is redjamslam.com, and we've documented the Resonating Reconciliation as it went along, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you're actually working on your own Resonating Reconciliation documentary right now. Tell us about that.
That's right. I've been doing the final radio doc that will be out shortly. It'll actually be aired on March 8th with Co-op Radio.
Yeah, Co-op Radio. So this is Access TV. We thank you for joining us, and the Red Jam Slam Society. Doug West, Stephen Litton, Dave Rufus, Rhonda Watts, and Alwyn Exene.
I went to residential school. I was just 8 years old.
So yeah, part of what we do is work like Resonating Reconciliation. So it's a project funded by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where up to 40 of our members and some additional stations got to apply for funding so that they would make half-an-hour documentaries on the legacy of Indian residential schools in their communities. And as part of that work, they recruited local Indigenous producers. So it really helped stations create quality programming and reach out to new producers, new communities. So that's a big part of the work we do. And actually, the part that I think I'm most proud of is, yes, a lot of stations have created amazing programming out of this, but also we've heard from quite a few stations that they maybe didn't have Indigenous programmers before and kind of always wanted to and always thought about it. So this was the impetus for them to make that first connection, and that it has led to ongoing relationships. So we've kind of succeeded beyond what we expected even.
The most surprising aspect of the project, I think, would be the producers' variety that they bring to the project itself. Since each producer is designing the documentary for their community, it means that the project and the documentary itself is community driven and driven by the needs of the community, which means that no two documentaries are alike. It also means that the communities can tell their stories in their own way, and they're able to decide how they want those stories to be told. It also allows for, building up relationships with the stations and the non-Indigenous community, with the Indigenous communities, in ways that we never expected. We anticipated the producers to work at the stations and hopefully continue on afterwards, but it's also increased dialogue within the community and encourage other First Nation people within the community to get involved or to carry on the project in ways afterwards.
And I don't know, I would say just hearing the stories from all the survivors and stuff, because learning about the conditions and the crimes that all those students had to go through was really. It really opened my eyes to exactly how bad it was at these schools and exactly what they had to deal with, and yeah, that's what really affected me. The main objective of the Red Jam Slam was to address the legacies of residential schools through arts and music, so that was a lot of fun. Ed Bianchi from Kairos, Ottawa, I believe, he did a blanket exercise which went through the history of Aboriginal people in Canada, starting from whenever the settlers first showed up to present day. So, and it went through all the residential school, how that affected us and everything like that. And it was awesome. It put us all sort of in that world. So it was weird because it felt like we were part of it, which we are obviously, but it made me cry. It made everyone, almost all of the people who were watching it were crying. It was really powerful. It was really powerful. And later that night, we had all these performers coming in. All these Justin Alexander Holness, Brock Lewis, Jerry Trimble, just to play all this music because the first half of the day was really emotional and heavy. So we wanted to pick it up a bit, so we had comedians and musical acts and stuff come in during the night, and that was when all the kids showed up because it was free. But overall, the event was a pretty big success. We had people who came out, they really enjoyed it, and they learned a lot. I learned a lot. And yeah, I hope we do it again sometime.
Next up, we're going to hear from Charlotte LeBlanc. She has been part of a local business that have been helping and empowering women for over 2 years now in Vancouver, WMovers. They like to help marginalized women in many ways by employing them, by helping them transition from a violent situation, and by educating them through newsletters. Let's hear from Charlotte LeBlanc right now.
Welcome back to Access TV, where we shamelessly promote our friends and our family and our community. Speaking of our friends, we have WMovers in the house with me today. Charlotte Laurent, how are you?
Good.
It's been a while.
Yep.
I guess you've been busy moving people around.
Very. It's
making the moves.
Our biggest 2 months, just the last 2 months.
Just the last 2 months?
Of our last 2 years.
Yeah.
And we're starting our 3rd year. And very excited about.
So that we're talking about a company here made up of women, and they call themselves WMovers. Can you tell us more about the work at hand?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So WMovers is a company that is owned and operated by women.
Yeah.
And we are also prioritizing the involvement of marginalized women in the company. So whether you are marginalized because of poverty, because of your origins, because of your sexual orientation, because of your age, those are things that we'll take in consideration as a plus and not something that will discriminate you further.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And people always think it's funny when they go through the screening process with us, with the company, and we ask them, so do you consider yourself marginalized? And people will say, well, no, of course not, right? Because we're used to not saying those things in a phone interview for a job, and it's very amazing that we can say, well, no, it's it will be a plus if you tell us that you're marginalized. We'll take that in consideration as a plus for you to join this company.
Yeah. So it will actually work for you if you're marginalized, right?
Exactly.
With the WMovers.
Yep.
And you say that you train women to learn how to move, like how to pick things up.
So we have orientations, and
how long does it take?
So the orientation process, the first one is about 3 hours for you to get a sense of who we are, our mandate, and what we do.
Tell us more about your mandate.
But yeah, our mandate is to not only employ ourselves as marginalized women, but also to extend that support to other women in the community as well as seniors. That's not only, but also that are marginalized as well.
Well, who do you cater to?
Our main target is women and seniors. But we also work with women and seniors that are facing precarity, and we want to make our services accessible to everyone. And so we'll associate with organization that helps also women and seniors, such as transitional homes or seniors association. And we want everybody on the team to also be experienced at that level, so to be able to move someone that is fleeing abuse, or to move a senior and make them feel that they don't have to be afraid, or that they can talk freely and feel trust within this transition.
And you also have an awesome donation, like opportunities. I want to know more about that.
So finally, we'll extend that support to also the community. Right, by offering free donations. So lots of our private clients will give us items that they don't need anymore, and as they know that we redistribute these in the community.
Nice.
And so we do that for free for people that are again struggling economically. We'll do a free delivery and give the item for free.
The whole reason that you recognize that WMovers is really important to the community is because you also faced you're also been marginalized, you've faced poverty, and that's kind of how the WMovers got founded, was out of your own need
totally
to pull yourself up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for me, how I joined WMovers was out of the need to for myself, to support myself, right, as a woman. And I was working in the moving industry prior to working with the WMovers. And I was the only woman on the team where I was working. And I faced a lot of discrimination. At the same time, I was entering the moving industry to try to find a new trick for me to sustain myself, as my main trick was in the sex industry prior to moving.
Wow,
and
really?
That is very difficult to
break away from, and you did it.
Yep, it is.
And not only did you do it for yourself, you did it for other women. Other women can now join forces with WMovers and help people move and to move forward. And if you would like to know more about them, you can call 604-726-6285. WMovers can move you. Just let them.
And also visit our website, WMovers.com.
WMovers.com.
And you can find all our donations there as well on the community page and our services in the service page.
Well, I'll keep WMovers on top of mind next time I have something to donate or something to move. Thank you, Gunargie. Next up, we're going to hear from Wanda Mulholland and Caron O'Shaughnessy. They're part of a working group called the Transit Working Group, and they're looking at ways to make transit more accessible to homeless people. Let's hear from them.
Hello, I'm Wendy Peterson. Welcome to Access TV, shamelessly promoting our friends and community. TransLink operates one of the largest transit systems in North America. Anyone who lives in Metro Vancouver knows that it's really expensive to take the bus and SkyTrain. But imagine if you're homeless. It could be next to impossible. We have two women in the studio today who are trying to change all that. Karri O'Sullivan, who's with the Lookout Emergency Aid Society, and also the Urban Core Community Workers Association, and also Wanda Mulholland, who's a Community Development Coordinator and also with the Burnaby Task Force on Homelessness. Both of them are members of the Regional Transit Working Group. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what is the Regional Transit Group?
Well, it's a committee of Vancouver Urban Core Community Workers Association, and it is a committee that's really focused on identifying solutions to getting people who are homeless to and from shelters, and also to and from the shelters to various resources.
So what problem are you working on now, Wanda, with the Regional Transit Group?
The focus is on access to transit and on providing ways to increase that for people who are homeless. We're working on a proposal which would be working very closely with TransLink to establish a homeless transit plan throughout the Lower Mainland to assist people in exiting homelessness through transit.
So what does that homeless transit plan look like?
Well, maybe I can go back and talk about the problem. Mm-hmm. You started to talk about it, but there's people living in the streets of each and every one of our municipalities throughout Metro Vancouver, and there's people who have zero income, or they're surviving on such low incomes that transit is a luxury or considered a luxury. Also, the communities, the municipalities have decided collectively that we want to solve homelessness. So they've joined with the service community to try and figure out a way of how to do that. One of the things, though, is how do we get people, like the snowy day today, how do you get people to the shelters where they're at less risk, health risk, and where they can actually access services? And how do you get them from the shelters, or maybe it's a drop-in center, to the services that they require, or possibly employment?
Is there a solution emerging now about what you can do?
There is a solution in terms of working with TransLink on addressing this and on creating a homeless transit plan. I guess I just wanted to add to what Caron was saying, that if you look at outer lying areas separate from Vancouver, trying to get to services is very difficult because of the vast geographic area that's involved, and especially if you look at communities that may not have the amount of resources and shelters and services that they need for their citizens, then people need to go to other municipalities. And how do they get there, and how do they get the access to the services that they need?
So the regional homeless transit plan is a idea of getting everybody together throughout Metro Vancouver that are involved with the homeless or involved in homeless solutions, pulling them together at to the same table to figure out how best we can actually do that. And how can we do it in a way that is going to be extremely effective, and recognizing that transit is a support for solutions to homelessness.
So we, at Access TV, we're going to be really interested to follow this campaign that it sounds like you're working on, and that we could, we're interested in hearing what the solutions are, especially with the Compass card coming up. With the transit, and what the impact is going to be on the homeless. So I'm hoping you'll come back soon into the studio and give us an update.
We would be absolutely pleased to.
That's excellent. So thank you to Karri O'Sullivan from the Urban Core Community Workers Association. Association, and Wanda Mulholland from the Burnaby Task Force on Homelessness, and both of them on the Regional Transit Working Group. Great, thanks for being here in the studio.
Thanks.
Thank you.
How long do you think your family could last with the food that you have at home in the pantry?
Probably like a three weeks, maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks.
Maybe a week.
How many days could you survive?
Probably good for a month.
Probably about a week.
As much as 2 months if we were rationing.
Okay.
I've got a supply for emergencies.
Okay, next up, we're going to hear from Judy Kenzie, a local entrepreneur and imaginative gardener. She's going to tell us about vertical teaching gardens and truck gardens, and just about anywhere you can put dirt, you can grow something. Let's hear from Judy Kenzie. Welcome to Access Television, Judy.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to hear more about the Urban Seed Project. Why don't we begin there?
Yeah, I started the Urban Seed Project a couple of years ago, and my whole idea was to inspire people to grow some food for themselves in small urban spaces, so in Vancouver, and also to try and promote economic opportunities for people in the downtown east side.
Excellent. So you provide people with seeds and education.
Yeah, well, and motivation.
And motivation, making it fun.
Yes.
Speaking of motivations and what drives us, what is the difference for you between food security and food sovereignty?
Food security is really about access to food. So it's about everybody having some access to enough food to feed themselves. And that can be through charity or buying it themselves. Food sovereignty is more about control over where your food comes from. So that can mean control over how it's grown, where it comes from, that sort of thing. So that's the two big, for me, that's the main difference.
So food sovereignty would be more involvement in
absolutely
the beginning to table, from garden to table.
Absolutely.
So you're taking it from the garden and putting it into a vertical position. I've heard about this vertical teaching garden.
Yeah.
And how is this applying itself? How do you do this?
How do you
vertically garden?
Well, I mean, vertical growing has been around forever. I mean, if you consider things like trellises, I mean, that's vertical growing, right? But we want to take it a step further and do things like, you'll see with different groups that are growing things like strawberries in big pillars, big columns, things like
tomatoes.
Or tomatoes. So it can be everything from hanging baskets to wall gardens to freestanding, vertical applications, trellises. There's all sorts of different ways you can do it. So what I'm trying to do is combine both traditional and non-traditional techniques in a garden where people can go and see it and learn from it.
And you're taking this to the children.
Absolutely.
Of the downtown east side in Strathcona.
Yeah, Lord Strathcona Elementary.
Excellent.
And I should also mention that the project goes much further than just the garden, because we're also, we put together a package of, a collection of seeds that will be distributed to 200 lower income families in the downtown east side, yes. And so that was, and it's all being funded in part by the Vancouver Foundation, which is awesome.
And it's got everything in here, chives, carrots, pak choy, snap peas.
Yeah. So it's all later stuff. So it's nothing that they have to start early, like in March, like tomatoes and peppers. So.
Okay. So you've brought in some repurposed vessels for growing things. Do you want to tell us about these?
Well, part of the idea is to teach people that you can grow pretty well anywhere, as long as you pick the appropriate way, the appropriate seed in whatever vessel.
Some dirt, some oxygen.
Yeah, and some dirt, oxygen, water. Bit of sun's good, light, fake light even. But these are different shells, for instance. And I love growing in seashells. The funny thing is shells are really forgiving. Some things aren't so forgiving. I also grow in thimbles, which is really not forgiving. You forget a thimble for 8 hours, it's gone. Growing with Lego. Awesome.
Growing with Lego.
Awesome. Kids love growing with Lego.
Top of mind.
Yeah, and we actually incorporated that into the grant as well. So I did growing with Lego with 100 kids so far. We've got 24 25 more kids that we're going to be doing it with at Lord Strath.
So it's fantastic. You're incorporating play and
absolutely
and growing all of this into a small space. Now, Judy, this isn't the only vessel you've repurposed. I know you've repurposed a truck. Tell us about the truck farm. Where can we see it?
Oh, you can see it throughout Vancouver. It's also going to be back at Science World on exhibit this spring, and it will probably be in the P&E again this year. I haven't heard back from them. But basically, it's a mobile demonstration of growing in urban small spaces, and it's great. You can take it anywhere.
Such an imagination. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you again.
How long have you ever gone without eating food?
Only like 12 hours.
Between 36 and 48 hours.
Not more than a day. I mean, I have a job. I have a mother who loves me, who would never let me go without food.
I have gone hungry recently, as a matter of fact. I had to have help from friends and family because of, I won't get into it, but political reasons of no income.
You're watching Access Community Television, shamelessly promoting our friends and community.
I'm an organizer with the Industrial Areas Foundation. The IAF is a 60-plus-year-old organization that is international, started in the U.S. but is now international, that provides training and support for both local institutions that want to come together and build a broad-based organization, and the professional organizers who provide training and support for them.
Hi, my name's Rick. I come in from White Rock, where I live. I'm part of a group out there called the Surrey White Rock Food Action Coalition. And one of my colleagues in that group recommended that the MGA would be a really good place to learn about community organization and help us achieve some of our goals of food security, food justice, and improving food literacy in the community.
So the IAF focuses on building local organizations of member institutions who want to strengthen their own institution, who want to identify and explore issues affecting their families, and who want to go into action together on those issues.
In my role as the regional lead organizer, I was asked to help with a group of people who were just beginning to think about starting a similar kind of organization in Vancouver. And there was a group that was started mostly in the downtown east side, and my predecessor had been working with them for a little bit, and when he left, I took his place and started working with them to think about how do you build this kind of organization, how do you raise money to hire an organizer, and got it to the point where we raised enough money to hire Deborah, the current MVA organizer.
I'm Wendy Peterson. Welcome to Access TV, where we shamelessly promote our friends and community. So poverty, as we know, poverty, homelessness, inequality, they're all growing in BC. Our governments are cutting back on social programs. What does the average person do to make a difference? We have with us in the studio today one person who's working on getting us organized. Her name is Deborah Littman, and she's with the Metro Vancouver Alliance. Thanks for being here, Deborah.
Thanks for inviting me.
So I noticed on your website that you have this philosophy of the Metro Vancouver Alliance, which is it's called Power Before the Program. Can you explain to us what that means?
Power Before Program means that we don't start with issues. We start with building relationships between different organizations. So we are a broad-based organization of organizations, and those organizations are meant to be as diverse as possible so that they really do represent the whole community. We focus on faith, community, and labor organizations, but we would, in a sense, accept anyone who is in a sports organization, in anything that's a membership organization. And we spend a lot of time bringing them together to get to know each other, to build trust across groups that often don't sit in the same room, and to hear each other's stories and to find commonality. So we don't worry so much about what we disagree on, because there's always things to disagree on, but we find those areas where people actually do have a common view. And having built that connection, then we look for the issues that people care about.
Have you done this before in your past? Have you had a success with this model?
Oh, yeah, many.
Tell us
I came to this kind of organizing out of being a trade union organizer. I was working for a big public service trade union in the UK, and I encountered this kind of organizing through a living wage campaign. Now, that campaign started in 2001 with just a small group of people doing this exactly, saying, what's happening to our families? Well, you know, people are working full time, they can't make ends meet. Faith organizations were saying, we've got people coming to our soup kitchens who are working full time. What's going on? And they decided that low pay was the problem and living wage was the issue. Well, that campaign, which started in one little corner of East London, by the time I left England 10 years later, had national buy-in. Woohoo! We had an official living wage set by the Mayor of London.
That's so
we had
great.
hundreds of employers paying it, and it had reframed the issue from what will the market bear to what kind of community do we want to live in.
So where are we at in Vancouver with this campaign now?
Well, we've been building slowly. This is the way the model works. You build slowly. We've done that over a 3-year period, bringing in new organizations, doing leadership training, doing some small projects which help those organizations to strengthen their base. And we're just at the point now where we're going to do campaigning.
So what's next for this month coming up?
Right. We've done a listening campaign in all our organizations. On March 3rd, we have our discernment meeting, which means we hear what people have heard and we pick our top 3 issues. March 19th, we have a founding assembly. 600 people from all these different organizations coming together, recognizing the strength of that organization and then announcing those 3 issues.
And how can people get involved?
Through whatever organization they might be a member of. Some will already be in member organizations, but if you're part of anything, you can urge people in that organization to get in touch.
Do you have a website address?
We do.
Okay, what is it? Just tell us quickly.
www.metvanalliance.org.
Right. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these issues are that Metro Vancouver Alliance is going to take on.
Me too.
And so I'd like to thank Deborah Littman from the Metro Vancouver Alliance, the lead organizer, for being on Access TV. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Wendy.
Remember, you too can be a part of the Metro Vancouver Alliance. Join their founding assembly on March 17th.
You're watching Access Community Television, shamelessly promoting our friends and community.
Hello and welcome to Access Community Television, shamelessly promoting our friends and community. My name is Sid Tan and I'm here with Larry Wong, one of our favorite friends from our favorite community. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sid.
For those that don't know, Larry is the current curator of the Chinese Canadian Military Museum, and he's also the past president of the Chinese Canadian Historical Society of British Columbia. Very well known as a community historian and writer. And I'm going to start off right at the bat. Very interesting film that's come out, Operation Oblivion. Can you tell us a little about that film, Larry?
Yeah, it's actually a very true story of a secret operation, and it's only been known in the last few years because, as you know, members of the Operation Oblivion, they were sworn to secrecy. So when they came out of the war, they couldn't tell anyone what they did. Not even their wives knew what their husband did. And so the story actually started to come out in the last 5 or 10 years. And it's a very interesting story because they were especially selected for a mission. So the mission was to infiltrate Japanese communications in Hong Kong, which was held by the Japanese. And so they were specially trained because of their particular talents, and they selected 13 of them, and they were trained at a secret camp near Kelowna in the Okanagan. And they were based at a lake named Goose Bay, which eventually was renamed Commando Bay. It became a heritage site. But there they were trained on guerrilla warfare, hand-to-hand combat, plastique, how to kill a person very quickly, that sort of thing. And also they had, because the operation was known as Operation Oblivion, they were taught to use cyanide for themselves in case they were caught by the enemy. And they were taught to work in cells of 3 or 4 person. And also they were not to wear uniforms while they were on a mission. Basically what it was, they were taught anti-guerrilla warfare, and then they went out to Asia to support the anti-Japanese forces, and they in turn taught them guerrilla warfare. So it was a trade, it was a simple trade. Like, for example, there were 4 men that went to Borneo on a special mission. And the 4 men lived with a tribe of headhunters. And the headhunters gladly showed them how to use blowpipes so they can kill an animal or an enemy in this case. And in turn, the 4 men taught them how to use plastique and how to kill a person.
I actually had the pleasure of seeing the film. I noticed that you were in the film, and I noticed that a couple of people that I've known, Doug Jung and Roy Ma, were in the film, and they've become quite well known. And I remember Doug Jung saying that while the military contributions of the Chinese veterans, and let's make it clear, there's Operation Oblivion, Force 136, and Unit 280. There's all these things that happen. But what Doug mentioned, and I hope you can expound on it, was that their military contribution, while small, their contribution to the social and political history of Canada was exceedingly large. And I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on that.
Oh yes, what they did during the war and when they returned, they really changed the landscape of the Chinese community. Because for one thing, they proved to the federal government that they were in favor of the Allies and therefore fighting against a common enemy. So that was strongly in their favor. Because you have to remember at that time, there was an Exclusion Act passed in 1923, and the Exclusion Act was that Canada would not allow any Chinese into the country, and then previous to that was the head tax. So what these men did was, when they returned, they proved they were worthy as anyone else. What was even more important, back in 1875, the Chinese community had the right to vote away from them. In other words, they were taken off the voters' list. So when they came back from the war, they got their franchise back, I would say, in May 1947. And that was very important with the franchise because they were Canadian citizens, ergo, they were able to work at professions in which they were trained in. For example, if a Chinese went to a university and became an accountant, but he couldn't practice because the society wouldn't allow him in because he was not a Canadian. So the poor accountant would end up being a bookkeeper, or if he was trained to be a lawyer, he becomes a court interpreter. So these things were denied to the Chinese. So when the war ended, government repealed the Exclusion Act and also restored the franchise to the Chinese community. That was the important lesson.
Yeah. So the veterans can take credit for making that move, and it was a very significant move in the social and political history of Canada.
Oh, certainly, yeah, it did. And that's why I say it really had a profound influence on the landscape in the Chinese community.
Thank you for being with us. My name is Sid Tan. We've been with Larry Wong talking about Operation Oblivion and Chinese-Canadian war vets. Have a great day. Thank you.
A date which will live in infamy.
We were sworn secret for 25 years.
I don't think the Canadian government want to talk about that.
It was very dangerous.
You don't realize anything. You just do what you're told to do.
13 hand-picked Chinese Canadians were selected.
No number, no name.
To parachute behind Japanese lines, Special Operations Executive.
In Burma and in China, and to try to organize resistance units against the Japanese.
Clandestine operation.
It's how to sabotage the Japanese lines of communications.
If there's a rail line, to blow it up.
Training. All the training you can need. Full tilt.
Hand-to-hand combat,
weapons training,
explosive.
Now you have your lipid mine,
plastique,
a dynamite,
assassination.
You can't drop 12 Canadian boys in the middle of China somewhere. They'll kill you.
You can't be soft on a guy because if you don't, he'll put a knife through you.
If they were caught, then they had that cyanide pill to take.
They said they didn't do it, but we did it.
So they made the ultimate sacrifice.
That was our contribution in the Second World War. We earned our citizenship. I'll never take second place to anybody.
A recent production from Kaleidoscope students brings us Good Old School Perseverance, a film that exposes the barriers and how to navigate around some of them. Let's hear from some students in our midst.
In my experience, probably the #1 reason why students will stop attending is usually related to family issues. It could be poverty, it could be negative influences from a parent or both parents, why it's not important to attend school. I've heard of students being pulled out of school to go work with their father or mother. And often there is value sometimes in that if they're earning money for the family, but unfortunately the long-term repercussions are far outweigh the benefits of going to work that one day and helping out.
My peers like in high school is when my friends started to drop out, and also when I started keeping school, I didn't get much support from the counselor and the teachers as well. And also my friends didn't really help me.
My school experience up to, well, in general, up to about halfway through grade 12 was hard socially. The academic part of it too was it was difficult, and I wasn't receiving the proper help.
I had a lot of trouble just with the basic curriculum, and just in general I just had focusing attention issues, and I just didn't fit in well. I did much better when I went to an alternative school, and I considered dropping out a lot. Throughout my first 4 years, so while I was at Prince of Wales, I considered dropping out many times.
I think there are many factors that have come into play for students not to attend school. It could be family issues, could be substance use, could be mental health disorders, depression, anxiety, really things that are going on with the students that's taking their mind and their energy away from school, where that school becomes secondary to dealing with those issues.
I left my school because there's 2 reasons. One is I'm not getting support from my parents and the school. They didn't really push me that hard. And also my friends starting to drop out.
Choices that students can make to increase the likelihood that they stay in school include first making a choice about their own attitude towards school, making choices around who they hang out with, who's actually going to be a good influence on them, peers, parents, responsible adults, those kinds of things, teachers even. Students can involve themselves in activities and find that they are strong in different areas and are able to take the progress that they have in those areas and transfer those to other aspects of their lives.
My feelings and thoughts on staff at the time were mostly resent. I really didn't appreciate anyone that worked there. I didn't think anyone was trying to help me. I thought everyone was against me, and that really kind of ended when I went to alternative school.
I love it here. I love the small school setting. You get to know the kids very well, and they get to know you. The big part of Stretch is for the kids from before, they've always saw teachers and administrators as the enemy. You know, they don't trust adults. They come here and they start to see us as people. You know, I'm the teacher, I'm the head teacher, you know, any discipline issues, they have to deal with me. And, you know, I'm always contacting their parents, but they see me as a person who actually cares about them. I always ask the kids, do you think I'm on your side or the enemy? And almost always they'll say that I think you're on my side.
At the alternative program, I was receiving more direct help. The teacher-to-student ratio was a lot better, so the teachers had more time for their individual students.
Yeah, the things that I think we provide for kids that enable them to be more successful, I think there's two main things. One is the small class size. I'm a big believer in small schools. I think every school should be like this. I think classes should be no more than 15 to 20 people. Instead, they're double that. Every class is about half the size of the regular system, and there are 2 professionals in the class all the time, a teacher and a program worker. So they get twice as much help, and the class is half the size. So that's the first thing, the small class size. The other thing, I think, is our constant communication with the home. So the home and the school are in constant communication with each other. So the kids, you know, what happens at home usually will affect a person at school. And the big schools, you know, I don't think they can really follow through and find out. But here, we find out fairly quickly, and we can sort of liaise with the home and sort of work on common solutions.
I decided to complete high school because it was just something I needed to do for myself. I didn't really feel complete until I had done that, at least for my education-wise. And I really wanted to get into photography in college at that time, so it was kind of a stepping stone until then.
I've been working with a student who never passed grade 8. She dropped out of one of our alternate schools here in Richmond 3 different times for various reasons, sometimes behavior related, sometimes academics and an unwillingness to do work. And she has now completed English 10, even though she never did 8 or 9. She's now enrolled in English 11, and she has hopes of graduating.
Not finishing your high school is a bad idea. There's so many reasons not finishing your high school. You can't get a job that you want. Also, it's hard to get into college because you didn't finish your high school. And it's just hard to blend in with some people when you don't finish your high school.
I decided to complete school because I had more a motivation. My family has a history of not doing so well education-wise, so it was more of a motivation for me to finish school and go on to learn more post-secondary.
So I think that if everyone understood that as a community, we are all responsible for each other, that individuals can then be able to be picked up and find their way. And once people find that path, it's up to them to make those plans and follow through with them. And have people there cheering them on, celebrating those successes, and being there to understand when things go wrong. What were the pieces that weren't there and that need to be tweaked? And I think that overall, though, if that inner desire is there, then young people can really find a way to make themselves someone they can be proud of.
Thank you for watching this episode of Access TV. We're already working behind the scenes and in communities to bring you stories for the next episode. For today, we're going to leave you with some images of the 23rd annual Missing and Murdered Women's March that happened on the streets of Vancouver, February 14th, as it does every year.
Watching Access Community Television, shamelessly promoting our friends and community.